Okay, let's talk some college football. Do have a couple of picks for you. Lost on the picks last week, 1-2 on my 3 picks. Still barely keeping my head above water for the season. 5-4 overall on my college football picks. Do have 3 games this weekend I like. First, I want to talk about a couple of games I'm not involved in, but big games that do have markets on BETDAQ. Want to start with a matchup in the SEC between undefeated top 10 teams. No, I'm not talking about South Carolina and Georgia. I'll get to that one in a second. I am talking about the LSU Tigers going on the road to play the Florida Gators. Now, Florida's been a real surprise this year. They've been a surprise in general, nationally, I think, being they started the year outside the top 20. They've been a real surprise to me. I thought this team was going to struggle, especially on offense. We saw last year they were not a very good team, and I thought they were going to lose at least one of their 2 road games. They played back-to-back road games in Texas A&M and Tennessee. Thought they would lose at least one of those games since both those offenses can put up some points. They did not, however. Gators have been impressive so far this year, and I think most of the credit, they have a good defense, but we knew they were going to have a good defense. We did not know they would get play out of the quarterback position like they've gotten from Jeff Driscoll. Jeff Driscoll, who, of course, coming into the season, he wasn't even announced as the starter. Him and Jacoby Brissett in the first game split time, and it wasn't until after that first game that Muschamp committed to Jeff Driscoll as his starting quarterback, and Jeff Driscoll is certainly making him look smart through these first few weeks. Now, he hasn't faced a defense anything like he'll face this weekend against LSU, so he's going to have his hands full. Driscoll's still a young guy, just a true sophomore, not a traditional passer, even though, after last season I was thinking Driscoll might be one of those guys who didn't really have an NFL future. Brissett looked like more the traditional pocket passer and Driscoll looked like the runner, but I tell you what, Driscoll's impressed me this year with his passing and does have a nice quick release. I do think Jeff Driscoll's now going to develop into an NFL quarterback. I'd be surprised if he's not eventually a first-round pick after what I've seen these first few weeks. But how will he look this Saturday against LSU? I do not have a good feeling. I do not have a good feeling about this game as far as Jeff Driscoll's performance goes. I think the LSU defense is really going to dominate this game, shut down that Florida offense. LSU is a 2.5-point favorite on BETDAQ, 42 the total in this game. The reason I'm not getting involved, the reason I'm not backing LSU is because I don't like what I've seen from LSU's quarterback, Zach Mettenberger, the transfer from Georgia, who is expected, many people, and I fell into the trap. I was one of those people. I thought that Mettenberger was going to be instantly better than what they've gotten over the last few years out of the quarterback position, Jordan Jefferson and Jarrett Lee. Really, LSU's been winning in spite of their quarterback. And Mettenberger, and so many people are guilty of it, and again, I'll come clean. I was guilty of this with Mettenberger because he was a 5-star recruit, because you heard so many things about him coming out of high school, because he had been at a school like Georgia where he was competing with Aaron Murray. I mean, before Mettenberger got in trouble and had to leave Georgia, it wasn't sure whether he or Aaron Murray was going to be the quarterback of the future for that program, and we've seen Aaron Murray's been pretty good for Georgia. And so you expected Mettenberger to be sort of like that, and maybe he eventually will be. Thus far, though, Mettenberger hasn't been any better than Jordan Jefferson or Jarrett Lee or any of the other quarterbacks LSU's had over the last few years. I guess Jefferson and Lee have been their 2 quarterbacks over the last 4 or 5 years. If you go back before those guys, you're going to start to get into guys who are better than what Zach Mettenberger's been thus far. Now, we know LSU, it's nothing fancy. They're going to line up and pound the ball. They do running back committee like always. Each running back seems more powerful than the next. These guys really run it downhill. Gators do have a good front 7 on defense, but they're more known for speed than they are power. Last year, this Gators defense looked excellent against teams that really challenged them sideline to sideline, but they were pushed around against some teams that ran the ball right at them, including LSU. It will be interesting to see this Saturday how that Gators defense holds up against this LSU power running game. I do lean towards LSU in this game, but again, the uncertainty around LSU's quarterback, LSU looked terrible on offense in the last game, the 12-10 victory over Auburn. Really, Auburn, not a great defense, really expected LSU to win that game more easily. They were 20-point favorites or something like that. So not sure what to expect from LSU, or not 100% sure what to expect from LSU on Saturday. I think I know what we're going to see. I think we're going to see that defense really limit Florida and LSU win a sort of low-scoring, ugly game. But I don't have enough confidence in that outcome to actually bet on it. Now, another game, again, that I have a lean, but not a strong enough lean to actually get involved in the game. The West Virginia Mountaineers visiting the Texas Longhorns. Another game between undefeated top 10 teams. We should see a lot of offense in this game. Texas is a 7-point favorite right now on BETDAQ. The total, you ready for this? The total in this game, 73.5. That's right, the total in this Texas-West Virginia game, 73.5. Now, if you've seen both offenses play, I guess you understand that total. West Virginia, probably the best offense in the country. A prolific offense under Dana Holgorsen. Dana Holgorsen in his second year now as head coach. Holgorsen comes from that Mike Leach, Hal Mummy coaching tree. He, of course, was one time Mike Leach's assistant. He's made stops at Houston and Oklahoma State since leaving Leach's staff. Both those offenses now run some form of the Dana Holgorsen, Mike Leach offense. We see this offense slowly spreading throughout the college football world, and it works. And when you have guys like West Virginia does, quarterback Geno Smith, wide receivers Stedman Bailey, Tavon Austin, when you have that kind of personnel to run this offense, I mean, we see the results. It is as close to unstoppable as you can get. 70 points last week against Baylor. They scored 69 already this season in another game. Now they're going up against Texas, and Texas, they put 41 on the board last week against Oklahoma State, 66 on the board the week before against Ole Miss. It was a little bit of a surprise to see Texas's offense like this. Nobody expected QB David Ash to play as well as he's played so far this season. And at this game, at first glance, I thought this was too many points. I saw Texas giving 7 to a team like West Virginia. And hey, Texas is not going to be able to stop West Virginia. I'm telling you right now. The Mountaineers are going to put up 600 yards of offense and 30, 40, 50 points. Who knows how many points? And so you look at a team that's not going to be stopped, that's going to be able to put a lot of points on the board, getting 7 points. And you might think, well, that looks pretty attractive. But when I thought a little more about this game, Texas, they're just going to be athletically superior. Maybe not speed-wise. West Virginia has a lot of speed at the wide receiver position. But when you look at this game, especially in the trenches, the lines, Texas's offensive line is going to absolutely dominate the West Virginia Mountaineers' front seven. Texas is bigger and stronger at literally every position. And how many West Virginia Mountaineers would be West Virginia Mountaineers right now if they had been offered scholarships at Texas? Not that many. So Texas just a little bit better quality of athlete. And I'm not talking about speed. I know West Virginia has a lot of speed on that offense, and I have a lot of faith in that West Virginia offense. But I can't help but think that Texas is just going to really push them all over the field. And if West Virginia just slips up and makes a mistake or two, maybe an interception or two from Geno Smith, a bad fumble here and there, they might not be able to recover, and Texas might pile it up on them here. Now, West Virginia has a chance to win this game. So West Virginia money line might not be a bad bet. I'm sure the price is nice on the money line because they are 7-point underdogs. But I just don't have the faith West Virginia +7. Wouldn't be surprised if Texas just rolled it up on them, at home in Austin. However, I don't put anything past this West Virginia offense. So again, I'm staying away from this game. I did lean towards West Virginia in the beginning, but Texas, in thinking about how Texas is going to dominate the line of scrimmage, how that Texas offensive line is going to dominate the Mountaineer D-line, and vice versa. I mean, we know Geno Smith gets the ball out of his hands quickly, and he better get the ball out of his hands quickly because I don't expect his offensive line to give him much time. So I'm going to stay away from this one. Very interesting game, though. Really looking forward to watching this game. 73.5 the total once again. Now let's get to 3 games that I am going to get involved in. And again, well, does that mean anything? I don't know. Only 5-4 this year on the picks, 1-2 last week. So hopefully we're waiting for our first undefeated week to get way out ahead of it, comfortably in the black. Maybe this weekend will be that weekend. Do want to start with a game in the SEC, the best game of the weekend throughout college football. The Georgia Bulldogs going on the road to take on the South Carolina Gamecocks. These teams both undefeated. I believe they're number 5 and number 6 in the latest poll. Both of these teams have future NFL stars on defense. I guess Georgia's best player, Jarvis Jones, the outside linebacker, who is a nightmare for opposing offenses. But does he have a brighter future in the NFL than South Carolina defensive end Jadeveon Clowney? I'm not sure. Have you seen Clowney play? This guy is incredible. I know that he was the number 1 overall recruit in the country last season coming out of high school. He is a true sophomore now, but I mean, every time I watch this guy play, my jaw just hits the floor. This is a defensive end who runs like a wide receiver. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I'm not exaggerating at all. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney, frequently you'll see him overrun a play because that's one of his flaws. Still a young player. Sometimes he'll overrun plays. Then you'll see the play happen, and all of a sudden in your screen, In comes flying a guy from behind the play. It's Jadeveon Clowney flying back up to tackle the running back from behind or catch a wide receiver who's caught a pass, whatever it may be. This guy is unbelievable. And he's got a guy on the other side in Devin Taylor, who if it weren't for Clowney, all you'd be talking about is Devin Taylor when you talked about the South Carolina defense. I mean, Clowney and Taylor, the defensive end combination, they are unbelievable, and I expect them to absolutely harass Georgia quarterback Aaron Murray. Murray has been known throughout his career to make some mistakes when he's pressured. Hasn't really shown that tendency this year. This Georgia offense has been excellent this year, scored 40 or more points in every game, but they have not seen a front seven like they'll see out of South Carolina. Georgia's best wide receiver, Michael Bennett, was injured this week in practice. He'll be out for the rest of the season, so of course he'll miss this game. That will be a blow to the Bulldogs wide receiving core. They still have some guys who can do it out at wide receiver. Tavares King, Marlon Brown. It's not like Georgia doesn't have anything out at wide receiver, but Michael Bennett was that dependable guy who you could tell Aaron Murray really trusted. So they're going to feel his loss. And I do anticipate a couple of mistakes from Aaron Murray, which is why I lean towards and am betting on South Carolina in this game. South Carolina currently installed as a 1.5-point favorite on BETDAQ right now. 53 the total. Really impressed with the Gamecocks this year. Quarterback Connor Shaw. Steve Spurrier has not gotten enough credit for what he's done at South Carolina. This is a program that was a doormat, not only in the SEC, but South Carolina, I believe the 1969 ACC championship was the only conference championship this program has won in their history. They've never been a good program. Last year, the best year in the program's history. And this year, undefeated, looking like one of the best teams in the country. We talked about the front seven on defense, but Spurrier has got to be given credit for what he's done to that offense. As you know, if you followed Spurrier's career, he really revolutionized the SEC in the 90s with his passing game, with the Florida Gators passing game. And it was, 5-step, 7-step drops, throwing the ball down the field, offensive lines that were able to give his quarterback time. Spurrier has completely changed his philosophy. Now, a couple of years ago, people might have said, well, he changed the philosophy out of necessity. He just hands the ball to Marcus Lattimore, he just runs the ball because they can't pass the ball. And that may be somewhat true still, but I think largely he's changed his offensive philosophy because he's found something that works better with the personnel he has now. Connor Shaw can really run the ball. And this spread option attack with Connor Shaw and Marcus Lattimore has been absolutely lethal. As a matter of fact, there hasn't been a defense in college football that's been able to stop it. Since Connor Shaw took over at quarterback last season, this South Carolina offense, again, that running game, people just haven't shown the ability to be able to stop it. And Connor Shaw is an underrated passer. Ace Sanders, an excellent wide receiver. It reminds you a lot of those wide receivers Spurrier used to have at Florida. The Jaquez Green, Reedell Anthony, Ike Hilliard types, sort of small, fast, shifty wide receivers. Ace Sanders, one of the more underrated players in the Southeastern Conference. He can do it in the return game as well as making plays on offense as a wide receiver and with the ball in his hands, reverses, things of that nature. So South Carolina, between Sanders and Bruce Ellington, they've got some explosiveness on the perimeter. The Georgia defense has been disappointing this season, allowing over 40 points to Tennessee last week, despite having all their starters back. Remember, they did have some guys suspended earlier in the year. Those guys are back now, but this Georgia defense still has not played as well as we expected them to play. I don't think they're going to be allowing any 40 points this weekend to South Carolina. Do expect this game to be somewhat low scoring. I do lean towards the under in this game. The total is 53 on BETDAQ. But I do like South Carolina. The Gamecocks, a home team. The home team in this game means everything to them because Georgia avoids all of the best teams in the SEC West this year. They don't have to play Alabama. They don't have to play LSU. They don't have to play Texas A&M. They don't even have to play Mississippi State, the fourth best team in the SEC West. So if South Carolina loses this game, they literally have no shot, I don't think, to win the SEC East. I think the players are fully aware of that. I think they're going to be ready for this game. Obviously, Williams-Brice Stadium is going to be a madhouse. I do like South Carolina minus 1.5 this weekend over Georgia. And by the way, that's not a popular pick. The public's been on Georgia all week out in Vegas. I hear a lot of the talking heads, the so-called experts, getting on Georgia as this game approaches. But I do think South Carolina is the right play here. Next game I want to talk about, Penn State at home playing Northwestern. Penn State currently installed as a 2-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ, 47 the total. And Penn State, after losing their bettors' money in the first game of the season, they've picked it up here recently. They've covered in their last 4 games. This Nittany Lion team just playing better football now. Blew out Illinois 35-7 last week. Hosting a Northwestern team that, folks, if you've been sleeping in Northwestern, if you haven't come around on Northwestern, you need to watch this team play football. Pat Fitzgerald, their coach over the last couple of years, has done a phenomenal job. This Northwestern program, obviously traditionally a Big Ten doormat, and they still aren't getting the athletes. I mean, they're going to be out-athleted here at nearly every position. Penn State is going to have guys who are bigger, stronger, faster than Northwestern's guys, but they're not going to be out-coached. Pat Fitzgerald, what he's done with his team, what he's done with this offense. Northwestern can score. Kane Coulter, their quarterback / running back / wide receiver, a player who's underrated, I think sort of unknown on the national scale, from a national perspective. A lot of people don't know about Kane Coulter, but this guy is an excellent player who can do a lot of different things. Northwestern 5-0 this year, both straight up and against the number. 5-0 against the spread. Just not getting much credit yet. 2-point underdogs this week against Penn State, and people look at this game and they see a Penn State team that has historically dominated Northwestern. They see a Penn State team gaining momentum after a big 35-7 win over Illinois last week. Penn State at home. I think a lot of people expect Penn State, because they have better players really on both sides of the ball in a lot of cases. I think a lot of people expect Penn State to follow through with their momentum and win this game. I do like the Northwestern Wildcats to win this game. Northwestern is just the better team here. I know that Penn State is bigger and stronger in a lot of positions. I know that Penn State's defensive line is going to dominate Northwestern's offensive line. I know that Northwestern's offensive line might not be able to hold up against Penn State's front seven. However, Penn State is not good enough on offense. And I know Northwestern, they struggle on defense. They've played a little bit better these last couple of weeks after just having a meltdown in week 1 against Syracuse. But still, Northwestern, not a real good defense. Penn State will have some success with the power running game. I do not think, though, that Penn State is explosive enough offensively. They do not have the weapons at the wide receiver position to keep up with this Northwestern offense. Even though the Northwestern offensive line is going to struggle in this game, this Northwestern offense is really good, and they're going to be able to put up points. They've done it against every opponent they've played so far this season. They're going to do it against Penn State. Just don't think the Penn State offense is going to keep up in this game. I do think the Northwestern Wildcats are going to go to 6-0 straight up and against the number this weekend. I look for them to go into Beaver Stadium and beat the Penn State Nittany Lions. Do like Northwestern +2 in that game. The final game I like this week, final game I'm going to get involved in, the Nebraska Cornhuskers going on the road to play Ohio State. Ohio State installed as a 3.5-point favorite right now on BETDAQ in this game, 56 the total. Now, I'm not going to play on the total, but this is another game I do lean towards the under in this game. 56 feels a little high. However, the bet I like more is Nebraska +3. Ohio State, full disclosure, I lost betting against Ohio State last week. Bet on Michigan State in that game. Ohio State pulling out a 1-point victory. Of course, I also lost betting against Nebraska last week. So I was 1-2 last week, and the 2 games I lost, it was these 2 teams who ended up costing me money. I've seen both these two teams play a lot this season. They both have similarities. Both these 2 teams have running quarterbacks who are really effective with their legs and who struggle a little bit throwing the ball. Both these teams have defenses that are not quite as good as you'd expect from Ohio State and Nebraska. I think Nebraska is a better team. I've watched Ohio State several times. I think this Ohio State team is due to lose a game, and I think it's probably going to happen this weekend. I know it's homecoming for Ohio State, so this crowd is going to be juiced. It's going to be a tough atmosphere for Nebraska, but they're a veteran team. They've experienced all sorts of tough atmospheres. Taylor Martinez, even though he still is limited in the passing game, he has improved. He does throw the ball better this year than he did last year. I think he throws the ball better than Ohio State quarterback Braxton Miller. Both of these guys real threats with their legs, but I like the Nebraska defense a little better than the Ohio State defense. Ohio State, I feel, is very overrated right now on the defensive side of the ball. And it's not like Nebraska is great on defense, but they're improved. They're better than they were last year. They had a really bad game against UCLA, and they had a bad start to the game last week against Wisconsin. But we saw them tighten it up against Wisconsin. I think they're really going to limit this one-dimensional Ohio State offense. I don't expect Braxton Miller to have the same type of success running the ball that he's had throughout the first few weeks because they know it's coming, and they know that's all Ohio State has. Now, in fairness, Michigan State knew the same thing last week, and they held Ohio State to below 20 points, so they did limit that offense, but the Spartans were just not good enough on offense themselves to go ahead and beat Ohio State. Nebraska is better on offense than Michigan State was. I do believe the time has come for Ohio State. They've been flirting with a loss throughout this season. They haven't played well yet this year. I think Nebraska is going to march in to the Horseshoe on Saturday and deliver that loss. So there you have it. Those are my 3 games. South Carolina -1.5, Northwestern +2, Nebraska +3.5. And again, I do expect the Cornhuskers to win that game, but don't be going all crazy and betting on Nebraska money line. The 3.5 points in that game could really come in handy. A Big Ten game like that, close game between 2 teams that are very similar. I like Nebraska +3.5 a lot more than I like Nebraska plus money line. So there you have it. Hopefully you'll have success in whatever you try to do tomorrow in these college football games, just so long as your interests don't conflict with my interests.